Kiss legend Gene Simmons just sent a scary update from the hospital after blacking out behind the wheel on Pacific Coast Highway. And it wasn't the first time his heart condition is struck.
I'd never heard of the term AFib, but about 10 years ago, we were on tour someplace, and the stage temperature goes up above 100 with all the stage lights, and my heart would go into boom, 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 you know, like that. I started to get dizzy and perspire and short of breath. So I called the doctor, and he showed up and said, okay, here's what's going on. There's something called AFib, and he went down the list, and it was a lot to take in.
That dizziness and shortness of breath Gene described, those are classic warning signs of AFib. You see, when your heart can't pump blood properly, your brain doesn't get enough oxygen, and that's what causes you to faint.
Or an AFib can cause part of your heart to quiver, race, or it can seemingly skip a beat. And it happens because the top chambers of the heart, the atria, don't conduct a normal electrical signal and can struggle to properly pump blood through that heart.
And this is exactly what happened to Gene Simmons on October 7th, 2025. The 76-year-old rock icon passed out behind the wheel as his SUV careened across multiple lanes of traffic.
Who is 76 years old, reportedly told deputies on the scene that he either passed out or fainted while he was driving.
And now the wife is confirming what triggered this terrifying medical emergency. Doctors had recently changed Gene's medication.
But thankfully, we now have an update directly from Gene's wife, Shannon Simmons. She told NBC4 that Gene is now back home and recovering. This is obviously the best news anyone could hope for. Shannon also gave a crucial piece of information, noting that doctors had recently changed Gene's medication.
This is what Gene Simmons confirms about his scary hospital visit. So here's what happened. On October 7th, 2025, Gene Simmons was driving his Lincoln Navigator down the Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu. It was just before 1 p.m. on what seemed like an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. But something went terribly wrong. Gene later told deputies exactly what happened. He passed out behind the wheel, and his SUV didn't just drift into another lane. It careened across multiple lanes of traffic on one of the busiest highways in Southern California. The 76-year-old rock legend had zero control as his vehicle crossed into oncoming traffic. And this wasn't some dramatic Kiss stage stunt where you practice the fall beforehand. A witness called 911 as they watched Gene's Navigator swerve across the PCH before finally slamming into a parked car. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department from the Lost Hills station responded to the scene. When deputies arrived, Gene was conscious and speaking with first responders. He told them he either passed out or fainted while driving. At least he was honest about it. Can't exactly blame traffic when your car's doing the cha-cha across 4 lanes. No one else was injured in the crash, which was incredibly fortunate given that his SUV had crossed multiple lanes of active traffic. Gene was transported to a local hospital by the LA County Fire Department for treatment. Now, at 76 years old, any car crash is serious. But one where you lose consciousness while crossing lanes of traffic on the PCH, that could have been fatal for Gene, for other drivers, for anyone in that parked car he hit.
At 76 years old, any car crash could be very, very significant for the operator of that vehicle. Never mind the fact that he's going across multiple lanes and smashing into a parked vehicle.
The crash happened in the 25,000 block of Pacific Coast Highway. The sheriff's station confirmed to People magazine that an accident matching this description occurred, though they initially didn't officially name the driver. But NBC's report identified him as the legendary Kiss bassist, Gene Simmons. And the question everyone wanted answered, why did Gene pass out while driving? Turns out it wasn't from finally listening to his own merchandise jingle one too many times. Gene Simmons has atrial fibrillation, commonly called AFib. It's a heart rhythm disorder that he was diagnosed with about 10 years ago. Most fans had no idea Gene was dealing with this condition. I mean, when you're known for breathing fire and having the longest tongue in rock and roll, irregular heartbeat doesn't exactly make the highlight reel. But it's been there, lurking, waiting to cause exactly the kind of medical emergency that happened on October 7th. AFib causes the upper chambers of the heart, the atria, to beat irregularly. Instead of pumping blood efficiently through the heart, the blood can pool. This creates 2 major problems: blood clots that can cause strokes, and disrupted blood flow to the brain that can cause fainting. That's exactly what happened to Gene on the PCH.
Never heard of the term AFib, but about 10 years ago, we were on tour someplace, and the stage temperature goes up above 100 with all the stage lights, and my heart would go into boom, 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 you know, like that. I started to get dizzy and perspire and short of breath. So I called the doctor, and he showed up and said, okay, here's what's going on. There's something called AFib, and he went down the list, and it was a lot to take in.
Gene first discovered he had AFib while on tour. The stage temperature would climb with all the lights and pyrotechnics Kiss is famous for. You know, just casual working conditions. Performing in what's basically a human-sized easy-bake oven while wearing more leather than a biker convention. His heart started beating irregularly. He demonstrated it as this rapid, uneven pounding. He got dizzy, started perspiring heavily, and felt short of breath. The doctor explained that AFib disrupts the normal electrical signals in the heart. When your heart can't pump blood properly, your brain doesn't get enough oxygen. That's what causes the dizziness. That's what causes fainting. And that's exactly why Gene lost consciousness while driving on October 7th.
Where an AFib can cause part of your heart to quiver, race, or it can seemingly skip a beat. And it happens because the top chambers of the heart, the atria, don't conduct a normal electrical signal and can struggle to properly pump blood through that heart.
AFib doesn't always show symptoms. You could be walking around with it right now and not know. Gene said that since his initial diagnosis, he hasn't had many recurring problems because he gets plenty of rest and drinks lots of liquids. But he admitted, "Am I prone to AFib? You bet you. The condition never goes away." It's like that one relative who shows up uninvited to every family gathering. It's always there, ready to flare up at the worst possible moment. Hours after the crash, Gene wanted fans to know he was okay. His wife Shannon told NBC4 that Gene was back home recovering. He'd been checked out at the hospital and released. Physically, he was fine. No major injuries from the crash itself. But the reason it happened was concerning. Shannon revealed something crucial to reporters. Doctors had recently changed Gene's medications. She also mentioned that Gene needs to drink more water, something he apparently doesn't like to do. Classic Gene, the man who's made a fortune selling Kiss-branded everything, including bottled water, and he won't drink the stuff. The combination of new medications and dehydration likely triggered the AFib episode that caused him to faint. Gene posted his own update on X on October 8th. He wrote, "Thanks everybody for the kind wishes. I'm completely fine. I had a slight fender bender. It happens, especially to those of us who are horrible drivers. And that's me. All is well." Classic Gene, turning a serious medical emergency into a self-deprecating joke about being a bad driver. Sir, your car crossed 4 lanes because you were unconscious, not because you forgot to check your mirrors. A representative for Gene echoed the same message to Rolling Stone. Mr. Simmons is totally fine from this minor fender bender. Gene also left a voicemail with NBC4 saying he was doing fine. The messaging was clear. Gene wanted everyone to know this wasn't a big deal. Just a little accident. Nothing to worry about.
Am I prone to AFib? You betcha.
And it sounds like sometimes you weren't paying attention to kind of what you were doing to your body either. You know, kind of the heat, the armor, the rigor of being on the stage. Other parts of the kind of rock and roll lifestyle.
For the record, I've never been high or drunk and never smoked. Didn't want to break my mother's heart.
But here's the thing. Calling it a slight fender bender downplays what actually happened. Gene's SUV crossed multiple lanes of traffic on one of California's most dangerous highways. He was unconscious. He couldn't control the vehicle. The man literally had zero awareness that he was playing real-life Grand Theft Auto on the PCH. If that parked car hadn't been there to stop him, where would his navigator have ended up? How many other cars could he have hit? Understanding why AFib causes fainting is crucial to understanding what happened to Gene. When your heart's upper chambers quiver instead of contracting normally, blood doesn't move efficiently. Blood that should flow out of these chambers can pool. In some cases, it can even form dangerous clots. But the immediate danger Gene faced wasn't a blood clot. It was the disrupted blood flow to his brain. When the heart can't pump effectively, the brain doesn't get enough oxygenated blood, That causes dizziness, lightheadedness, and in Gene's case, complete loss of consciousness. It's like your body's power suddenly cutting out. Except instead of rebooting your computer, you're rebooting while doing 60 miles per hour on a California highway.
So blood that should move out of these chambers, it pools and in some cases can clot. That of course becomes very dangerous. Clots can then travel to the brain and cause strokes.
AFib symptoms can include feeling like your heart's racing or skipping beats, chest tightness, dizziness, feeling like you're about to pass out, and shortness of breath. Gene experienced many of these during his initial diagnosis on tour. The stage heat, the physical exertion, the costume and makeup, it all put extra stress on his heart that triggered the AFib episode. Gene has publicly said he's never been drunk, high, or smoked. Didn't want to break my mother's heart, he explained. So, ironically, the guy who looks like he'd party with the devil himself is actually health conscious. Go figure. The scary part about AFib is that it can exist without symptoms. You could be walking around with it right now and not know. Sometimes only your doctor can detect it by listening to your heart, feeling your pulse, or doing an electrocardiogram, EKG. That's why Gene's message to fans has always been, find out what's going on the inside. You may not see it on the outside, but you'll feel it. Gene Simmons has never been one to shy away from controversy or bold statements. The man who claims to have slept with thousands of women. The rock star who trademarked the pound sign. Yes, really, the pound sign. Like he invented it or something. The businessman who turned Kiss into a merchandising empire worth hundreds of millions. This medical emergency is just the latest chapter in Gene's wild life story. Before the crash, Gene had been making headlines for charging a fan $12,000 to work as his personal assistant for a day. Critics blasted him for the price tag. Gene didn't care. That's who he is. Unapologetic, business-minded, always looking for the next deal. From Kiss coffins to Kiss condoms, he's turned the band into a brand that makes money from literally everything. They literally have a product to get you coming and a product to get you going.
Well, look, doing what I do, wearing more makeup and higher heels than any female you ever met, literally, has been just unbelievable. But sex is pretty good, too.
Gene's relationship with his wife Shannon has been equally controversial. He's openly admitted to being unfaithful throughout their relationship before they finally got married. Shannon walked off set during a TV interview because of Gene's jokes about his philandering past. She literally just stood up and left. Can't say the woman doesn't have standards. Yet somehow, they've made it work for decades. Shannon was right there after the crash, giving updates, making sure he was okay. His feuds with other rock stars are legendary. His provocative statements about rock being dead, his outspoken political views, his unfiltered opinions about everything from immigration to money to success. The man has never met a microphone he didn't want to speak into, or a controversy he didn't want to stir up. Gene has spent 50 years in the spotlight, being exactly who he wants to be. Consequences be damned.
You're tired of the life?
Well, the kids went to college, and I'm tired of his life.
Which is?
That stuff. Stupid crap.
Kiss announced their farewell tour and promised they would never tour again. Don't wait for some chump to knock you out, Gene said. We've all seen boxers and rockers that stayed around too long. 50 years, half a century is plenty of time. But Kiss is scheduled to make their first big appearance together since the farewell tour ended. A massive 50th anniversary event in Las Vegas called Kiss Army Storms Vegas, running from November 14th to 16th, 2025. So much for never touring again. But hey, this isn't technically a tour. It's an event. Totally different. Despite the scary crash and hospitalization, Gene Simmons isn't slowing down. The November event in Las Vegas is still on. It's a fan-run celebration with 3 days at the Virgin Hotel. Gene and the band will be there answering questions, maybe jumping up to jam and perform occasional songs. No flying rigs, no 60-person crew, no full production. But Kiss will show up for their fans. This has always been Gene's philosophy. Show up, do the work, respect the people who made you successful. Even at 76. even after a medical emergency that could have killed him. Even with a heart condition that causes him to faint, Gene's not stopping. He's just being more careful about his medications and trying to drink more water. Though Shannon says he hates water. The irony of a man who built an empire selling Kiss-branded bottled water hating to drink water is not lost on anyone. The crash was a reminder that Gene's not invincible. The demon, the god of thunder, the guy who breathes fire and spits blood on stage, he's still human. He still has a heart condition that can make him pass out. He still needs to manage his health, take his medications correctly, stay hydrated, and listen to his doctors. Turns out, even rock gods need to follow doctors' orders. Who knew? Gene's story with AFib is ongoing. He was diagnosed 10 years ago. He's managed it by getting rest and drinking liquids. But the condition is always there, prone to flare up when conditions aren't right. The recent medication change that Shannon mentioned likely disrupted the balance Gene had found in managing his AFib. AFib contributes to about 130,000 deaths a year in the United States. Treatment can help, but it requires working with healthcare professionals to understand what treatment you need and what options are available. Things you can do to prevent AFib flare-ups: limit alcohol and caffeine, adopt a heart-healthy lifestyle including healthy diet and regular exercise, get plenty of rest, and stay hydrated. Gene Simmons learned these lessons the hard way on October 7th, 2025. His AFib caused him to faint while driving, leading to a crash that crossed multiple lanes of traffic before hitting a parked car. He was lucky. No one was seriously injured. He was checked out at the hospital and sent home the same day. But it could have been so much worse. At 76, after 50 years of rock and roll, Gene Simmons is still here, still making headlines, still showing up for his fans, still trademarking random symbols, still refusing to drink water even though his wife keeps telling him to. And now, hopefully, paying closer attention to his heart condition before it causes another scary incident. Anyway, that's it for the video, folks. Bye.